Well, good morning, everyone, and I want to welcome you to a joint committee session. This one is a briefing with our Education and Culture and Health and Human Services committees. We are hearing today from our Student Wellbeing Action Group, also known as SWAG, and our Reimagining School Safety and Student Wellbeing Group, also known as RSSW. And we're going to be going over the reports that they have given us when it really comes to recommendations that we've asked for in terms of how we can ensure that our children remain safe. And that means both from a security standpoint as well as from an individual standpoint. Something that is incredibly important to us now as we continue to see the rise in mental health challenges that we see across this country, in fact, across the world. We've seen a rise when it comes to suicide rates in some areas. And so it really is concerning for us. And we really want to make sure we're doing everything we can to support our children. Now, I will tell you that a lot of this discussion was born out of conversations around police reform and also around restructuring and reimagining policing in our communities. And of course, microcosms of our communities are our schools. They are certainly representative of all of the things that we see, both good and bad, that are in our communities, and they manifest themselves in our schools each and every day. And so we want to make sure that just as we remain committed to our general constituency in terms of ensuring that people have safe pathways to all different kinds of opportunities for themselves, we need to ensure that those same things happen within our school walls. And so I really just, excuse me, I want to start off by saying thank you, excuse me, to all of the groups and for their volunteering to stand up and do this work. It was hard. It was not easy. I know that there are many differing opinions, just as there are on the council. You know, it's so funny that the council oftentimes gets criticized for being all Democrats. And so, of course, obviously, we all agree. But I can tell you that that is oftentimes not the case. You know, we agree in terms of what it is that we're trying to do, which is make Montgomery County be one of the best places to live, work, and play. But the reality is that how we get there is oftentimes different, and folks have different opinions. And the same thing corresponds to these groups. But you will see the recommendations are certainly ones that we can all be very happy about, which are there designed to get us to a better place when it comes to providing supports for our students, to make sure that our communities, our school communities are safer, and that individuals feel as though when they walk into the school building, the only thing they need to worry about is focusing on their lessons. And that's incredibly important, especially in this day and age. So I will turn it over to my colleagues because I know that many of them have some opening remarks about why this is important to them, and I think it's important to frame this conversation as such. I really want to thank all of my colleagues who are on the call: Councilmember Navarro and Council Vice President Albornoz and Councilmember Duwando, who partnered with me in this effort to create the SWAG group, because you know, he and I started off in different places. You know, I was a big proponent of our school resource officers, and a big proponent in school resource officers being in schools, walking through hallways and talking to students and engaging with them, trying to enact positive relationships. But I also had to then understand that not everyone felt the same way. Not everyone felt as though the relationships that were trying to be attempted were positive in that respect, felt as though they were being policed while they were being in school. And while that may not have been the intention of the officers, that we have to be understanding of how people feel and how it made our students feel. That is incredibly important as well. And so from that perspective, I'm really happy that we were able to come together, both Councilmember Duwando and I, and the greater largesse of the county council as a whole, to really say we need to take a step back. We need to listen to our students in our community and come up with a better way in which we can support and make sure that our students remain safe. So with that, let me turn it over to Councilmember Duwando And then a number of my other colleagues, including Councilmember Navarro and Council Vice President Albornoz, will then speak as well. Councilmember Juanda.
Thank you very much, Chair Rice. And I realized I was not on mute that whole time, so I hope you weren't. I wasn't going to cut you off. I just didn't realize it. I wasn't talking, but so thank goodness for that. But good morning, everybody. Great to be with all my colleagues here. And I just think you framed it well. I won't say a ton more. We know, I ran into, unfortunately, I went to a funeral this week for my high school basketball coach's wife passed away after a battle with cancer. And it was almost, as funerals can be, like a mini reunion of family and teachers and coaches. And I saw one of my homeroom teacher in 9th grade who's, teaches religion at St. John's still, and he's been there almost 40 years. And still was as young as I remember him, which is insane, but it must be doing something right. But he said to me, this is, in his 40 years of teaching, this is unlike anything he's ever seen. He said he likened the trauma that the kids are dealing with to post-traumatic stress disorder, to PTSD for people coming back from Vietnam, and which was his era. And it just hit me really hard because I think we've all been trying to articulate what has happened in these last 20 months to everybody, but particularly our children. And I thought that was a really apt metaphor for what has happened to our kids and obviously to all of us, but as they're still growing and their minds are forming and they're trying to figure everything out, and which is always hard anyway, at any stage of being a kid. And so it just really underscored for me the importance of what we're doing here and why we have these groups in this report. And I was really happy that we're at a moment right now where all 9 of us, we disagree on a lot of things, but none of us disagree on the need to support the social, emotional, physical, and mental health of our students. And that's what this group, these recommendations where there's a lot of overlap, I think are pointing towards. I know our school system feels the same way. We've talked to the superintendent and the president and the board members. And I think we're poised to really make some dramatic changes and investments at a time where we really need to, where there is so much trauma and stress on our children and their families, and which is on the community. I think your point was well taken, Councilmember Rice. They are a microcosm of our community. The health of our community. You can look at our kids in our schools and see how they're doing. And so I really want to thank particularly Kyson Taylor, who I think is here, our student co-chair. We really wanted to make sure we centered student voice in the SWAG group to make sure that they had not only a seat at the table, but were a decision-making seat at the table. And I think I'm really happy that happened. Also want to thank all the RSSW, the working group. I know you had double duty, some people that were on both committees. So I appreciate all of our professional staff that did that. So really excited to hear the recommendations, get them out in the public, and then work with colleagues to across the government and the school system to make sure, and on the council, obviously, to make sure that we are implementing as many as we can, as quickly as we can, because our students need it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Juanda. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank all my colleagues, particularly you, Councilmember Rice and Joanda, for establishing this group and all the work of all these volunteers, especially the students who have taken this charge very, very seriously. Back in February of this year, I sent a memo to my colleagues delineating a comprehensive and holistic approach to this issue that took into consideration the mental health challenges of our students, the safety expectations of our families, the parents, and took into also consideration support for our teachers. And so for me, it is very gratifying to see that many of the recommendations fall squarely under a lot of these particular areas that I wrote in that memo. Now, I didn't do that alone. It was through a lot of consultation with HHS, with MCPS, with stakeholder groups in the community, and took into consideration some of the recommendations that Councilmember Rice and Councilmember Joando had put forth before the formation of these groups. And I want to say the following. I think that what was just described as, PTSD is absolutely real. And it's not just our students. We are hearing very, very serious feedback from our employee unions about the number of teacher vacancies and the stress that our teachers are experiencing at this moment. And make no mistake, this also has an effect on the mental health needs of our particular students as well. And so there are many different forces right now that are coming together that are of great concern, and they're not a surprise. This has been a sustained traumatic experience, and I think it is so important for all of us to continue to do what we are doing. I'm proud of this council for holding many sessions to explore how can we best respond and strengthen the mental health provision of services for our students and overall for all of our staff. I will say that there is a city in Oregon who reached out to me regarding that proposal that I shared in March, and that the school system was really, in February, the school system board wrote a letter in March saying that they were interested in this. I can't wait to also forward this report because I think it's complementary and that is super important. The only request I will make, I know Ms. Rodriguez is probably very busy, but I would really appreciate if that proposal that I forwarded in February, that it be included also in the legislative history of this particular report as well. I think it's important to include all the pieces the council members have put forth because again, it wasn't me, it was a collaborative effort, and I don't want folks who participated in that to think that that was just put in a shelf somewhere and hidden. But as we continue to work to address these issues, I just call to our colleagues' attention that we are also going to have to, I think, perhaps have a session on this issue of the teacher shortage and how that also has that impact on our students, and hope that we can all figure out some ways to provide that type of support. But again, thank you so much, Councilmember Rice Joando and Councilmember Albornoz, who has been in the forefront of all of these issues. This has been an all hands on deck effort on this council, and again, I look forward to all the different proposals that will come forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Councilmember Navarro, and my co-chair for today, and Vice President Albornoz. Floor is yours, sir.
Well, first, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councilmember Joando, for leading this effort. I, as you all know, but for the public to know, started out my professional career in the youth development space, and specifically encouraging youth to become more civically active within their communities. And I've spent most of my career, even as the director of the Recreation Department, working on positive youth development issues, and had the honor of co-chairing under the previous administration, with tremendous support from the council, the positive youth development initiatives prior to that. And I just want to say three things up front. First, I have such a tremendous amount of respect and admiration for all of the providers in this space, whether it's our teachers, our school administrators, our nonprofit organizations, all the support staff, including security, including our partners out there who want to ensure the safety and wellness and health of all of our students. We've got a tremendous group of advocates, people like Luis Cardona and so many others that are working on these issues day and night and have been for years. The second thing is, I have been just immensely impressed with our youth voices throughout my entire career, but in particular these last 2 years. And I think an effort like this dictates that the destination is as important as the land, because we need to create authentic and meaningful places for youth to be able to provide voice, to have their voices heard by us as policymakers, as decision makers, as adults, and to incorporate those thoughts and recommendations thoughtfully and in an authentic way as partners, because it's our youth who are the most impacted by all of this. And the final thing I'll say as we get started with this discussion, and Councilmember Jawando touched on this, I mean, in my 16 years, I've never seen anything like what we're seeing right now. The level of need, the level of complexity within that need across the board is really profound. You know, in the last year and a half, we've heard of challenges in just about every community and every ethnicity and every culture here in Montgomery County. And we have to meet this moment. And so there's no question that the recommendations, particularly around mental health and the support systems needed moving forward, are critically important, but we also have to acknowledge the challenges in staffing and recruitment and retention across the board, which have to go hand in hand as we look at implementing many of these recommendations. And we are undoubtedly in a transition point as we think about the specific security issues within our schools, and everyone has acknowledged this can't be an either or. We have to ensure that there's a strong infrastructure in place that's holistic and that's supportive of the needs of our students, their diverse backgrounds, their diverse perspectives, but also acknowledges the practical realities that we are starting to see on the ground that are alarming and that we have to make sure we stay in front of. So there are a lot of layers to this discussion, but I was immensely impressed with the recommendations that were made, particularly around issues of mental health. And I think there's an opportunity for us to enact those sooner rather than later and work holistically with HHS and MCPS and other key providers. And the final thing I'll note for now is parents are obviously a critically important component to this equation. And so I think as we expand this discussion and conversation, we're fortunate in the county to have such a strong infrastructure in place from a parent perspective too. And I think there's going to be opportunities for us to connect among all of our stakeholders, including our parents. But I really want to commend our youth for their leadership in this effort. And just lastly, appreciate all of my colleagues and the partnerships with all of you. Councilmember Navarro and I have been working on this for a long time, as with Councilmember Rice as well, and Councilmember Jawando and I too. And I know Councilmember Glass, who will be joining us later, has worked a lot in the youth development space as well. So look forward to this discussion this morning and briefing, and I yield back to you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. And it certainly is one where I couldn't agree with you more, that we are so appreciative of everybody and all of their great work that has led up to these terrific recommendations. I want to thank Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez, who is going to aptly guide us through the packet today, but did just want to highlight a couple of things before I do some introductions of who's with us today, because I think that I want to just level set where we are in terms of what our objectives are today. We want to focus on the curriculum changes that were recommended, as well as the restorative justice practices that have been recommended. All those things are buzzwords that many people have heard over and over again, but we're actually going to get down to some of the nitty-gritty and the details about what that means, what some of those expectations are, and what we hope is going to come as a result of implementing some of these. Of course, we can't forget about the mental health supports. You've heard many of my colleagues say that. This has been something that's been well before COVID, well before a lot of the challenges with some of our newcomers who come into this country who we know are also escaping and fleeing violence and already have PTSD from their own countries, and then come here and are thrown into another set of incredible challenges. So those mental health supports are incredibly important for all students, especially some of those who already had those challenging times in previous countries before coming here. And then, of course, we want to hear from our partners at MCPS about some of the things that we know that they've already been implementing in terms of mental health supports, curriculum changes, restorative justice practices, but also their response to these recommendations and how best we can utilize and implement these recommendations, and any support that will be needed from the council when it comes to ensuring that some of these recommendations move forward. So with that, I wanted to thank with Montgomery County Public Schools. I know we have Mr. Jimmy DeAndrea, the Chief of Staff. We have Nikki Hazel, the Associate Superintendent of Curriculum and Instructional Programs. We've got Shauna K. Durandi, the Director of Student Engagement, Behavioral Health, and Academics. And then We also have Ms. Rochelle Rubin, who is the, and Rochelle, your title is long. It's Chief of Teaching, Learning in Schools, correct? Okay, I just want to make sure I got it right. Okay, good, excellent. And then Everett, your new title, I always forget, so remind me again.
It's okay, no problem. I serve as the Acting Associate Superintendent for Student, Family, Support, and Engagement.
See, that's the longest one of them all, so thank you. Thank you very much for that. And last but certainly not least, rounding out MCPS, our SWAG co-chair, Kyson Taylor. Welcome to all of my Montgomery County Public School representatives. And then so to our Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services, we have Dr. Raymond Kroll, who is our director of our Department of Health and Human Services. We have Dr. Rolando Santiago, our chief of behavioral health and crisis services, Monica Martin, administrator for child and adolescent school and community-based services, and Joanne Barnes, who we know all too well, who has been a great part of HHS and working with children, youth, and family services, who is now a contractor. So we want to, and helping us in this effort. So I want to welcome you all and just say again, huge thank you to you and to all of the other folks that are out there. Big shout outs to our folks with Street Outreach Network and with Community Foundation, all the other folks that are out there who also were a part of this and did great work in terms of making sure that we had some recommendations that we know are going to be instrumental in change. So with that, I just want to note that we are going to have a future meeting that is going to talk about next steps for our what used to be the school resource officer that is now the community engagement officer, and some changes to the memorandum of understanding. So I don't want to get too much in the weeds in terms of that particular. We will come back to that recommendation. Obviously, we'll talk about the recommendations that both groups have with that. But as far as for my colleagues and for the conversation, I just wanted to remind us that we do have a meeting that's coming up to specifically discuss what some of those changes will be. And we'll utilize the information that we're talking about today to help inform us when it comes to that discussion as well. So with that being said, let me turn it over to Ms. Rodriguez Hernandez to go ahead and get us started.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to all of our participants who are here today to have this discussion with our council members. As the chair mentioned, there is that future Public Safety and Education and Culture Committee meeting on the formerly known SRO program. And in the staff report for today, I just wanted to note for the public and for all who are attending that there is that background information on SWAG and RSSW, which is the Reimagining Steering Committee acronym. And I will be sure to include Councilmember Navarro's proposal in the updated packet today. There's also the summary of the key recommendations from both groups, and then a section on the next steps for both of them as well. So we would like to start this meeting with a brief presentation, first from our SWAG group, and then second from the RSSW Steering Committee, and then we can open up to discussion and questions as you see fit, Chair Rice. So I will start with our SWAG chair members and additional participants.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kyson Taylor. I think I was just introduced, but I'm a senior at Richmond Montgomery High School, and I had the wonderful opportunity of serving as the student co-chair of the Student Wellbeing Action Group, or SWAG for short. Unfortunately, none of my other co-chairs could make it to this meeting today, so I will be the person presenting our presentation on our recommendations. So I have a slideshow prepared. I will present that in a second. Just give me a second to screen share. All right, here we go. So these are our final reports and our recommendations. Just a basic introduction to the Student Wellbeing Action Group, which I'm sure is actually probably in the staff report, but we had about 25 members. Attendance was not always full, each of which were students. We had 4 co-chairs, one of them being me, who is a student, but we also had Elijah Wheeler from the Collaboration Council, Regina Morales from the Department of Health and Human Services, and then we had Rochelle Rubin, who got promotion and was unable to participate in SWAG from that perspective, and then we had Mr. Everett Davis. SWAG has effectively centered student voice in its recommendations, ensuring that students speak before all other participants, taking a clear leadership role in the conversations that we had in our biweekly meetings. SWAG hopes to become a permanent body of students and community members that make yearly recommendations to improve student well-being in Montgomery County. And our main objective was to develop a set of recommendations for the council and for MCPS that map out student supports to address inequities unsuccessfully addressed by the School Resource Officer Program and exacerbated by the pandemic, and to overall improve student well-being. Also, without further ado, I'll get into the subgroup reports. We had 3 subgroups that each came up with 2 recommendations. Our first subgroup was the subgroup on school curriculum and climate, which focused on improving school climate by uprooting racism from within the curriculum and centering cultural awareness and unity. Unfortunately, this subgroup was not actually able to review the curriculum, but I'll explain that in the next slide. The 2 recommendations that they did create, though, was the creation, one, of a number of cultural centers or enrichment hubs to provide MCPS schools with a cultural experience and programs in and outside of schools, which would engage youth and transform school climate with partnerships, of course, from community organizations. Now, this recommendation would require funding from the council. The second recommendation, which is directed towards MCPS, would be the creation of a committee within MCPS to use the results of the anti-racism audit to transform school climate and curriculum in a proactive and inclusive way. I had a conversation a few weeks ago with the superintendent about this, and it came to my attention that there are currently bodies working with the results of the anti-racism audit. And so I think a lot of the work in that is going to be centering around getting students involved in that effort. So the curriculum and climate group was actually not able to meet as many times as possible during the period that SWAG was working on the recommendations. And so I think you all recognize that these recommendations are kind of non-specific and broad. And as they were unable to meet and really flesh those out, I'm not really able to provide any more details on the curriculum changes that they really weren't able to review. But SWAG is willing to reconvene and to flesh out these recommendations, of course, with appropriate buy-in and assistance from all the relevant entities. But I think the recommendations from this group represent the student sentiment specifically that they want, or we want MCPS to take steps toward taking action on the anti-racist efforts that it's been championing for so long by creating tangible entities and tangible tools that can, again, take these audits and take these anti-racist efforts and turn it into action that we would see in our schools. I think that starts with curriculum changes, and that starts with education and enrichment hubs. Moving on to our second subgroup, which is on mental health and behavioral health in schools. They focus on expanding access to school-based mental health supports who can provide therapeutic services to the students of MCPS, as well as developing processes for student oversight and engagement in the mental health practices in schools. So the first recommendation of 2 recommendations was to increase student access to mental health and well-being resources which are needed for student success. And the first way we would want to be able to do that was to add school staff and also school-based providers through the Department of Health and Human Services. The main professional that we would like to see hired for each MCPS high school would be culturally competent and trauma-informed licensed clinical social workers, and also school psychologists, with emphasis on the clinical social workers. And this would require, again, funding from the council. And we would like to specifically see an increase in support for undocumented students and consider Black and other social workers of color who can work with the county to lead any program that would involve social workers. And so I think that would require practice on MCPS's behalf, focusing in on hiring people of color for these positions. We'd also want to ensure that these schools have mental health teams that would integrate counselors, school psychologists, and of course the clinical social workers in order to provide holistic support for students and address their mental health and well-being needs. And we would also like to see mental health aid added for students as a sign of suicide. And that would also be an MCPS related policy change. And the second recommendation would be that students have a voice in all of these processes. And so we would like to see quarterly meetings within MCPS to gather student feedback on these programs to ensure that all student needs are being met. And we would like to include opportunities for peer support and representation. Preferably this would be done through student engagement groups, which would be groups of 20 to 30 students identified by students that would support identity development within schools to allow students the opportunity to support one another through more intentional engagement and interactions probably guided by these social workers. We'd want to make sure that every student feels comfortable coming back to school and talking with counselors and administrations. We're kind of already back to school now, but I think this is a practice that would be really important for every single year because students do have growing mental health needs. And so touching on these sentiments behind these recommendations, SWAG really wants MCPS to be a part of change in society as it approaches mental health as a normal daily need. We want to shift from more of a reactionary approach, which I think a lot of students have been seeing and feeling in schools, to a more proactive method of teaching mental health skills as we do other skills. And so doing that, we want to make sure that every student feels comfortable coming back to school and talking with counselors and administrations. We want to ensure that students who need mental health support know what resources are available and have easy access to those resources. We want to make sure that everyone, especially students, have a voice in matters surrounding student mental health. Additionally, we will touch on this in the recommendations from subgroup number 3, which is on police and restorative justice. But we would like to see MCPS develop a plan for a mobile crisis response team of professionals, not including law enforcement, who can attend to crises and address all youth. And the third and final subgroup was the subgroup on discipline and police in schools. And they chose to focus on uprooting the current school discipline system and replacing it with a restorative justice model in an effort to radically transform school culture. Additionally, the subgroup also chose to lay out a set of criteria for school safety models that may involve police in the form of Mlu Non-Negotiables. We'll get to those later. So the first of 2 recommendations was to allocate funding for restorative justice in all MCPS schools, and so that would come from the council. That would include hiring restorative justice practitioners for all schools and expanding the existing MCPS restorative justice unit. We would like to emphasize that we do not want police to be practitioners of restorative justice in schools. We would like all MCPS staff to provide or receive restorative justice training. And I believe that there was an effort to do this before, but we'd like to see that revamped with additional funding. And we would like to see specifically the retraining of those who are responsible for restorative justice, who are responsible for school discipline, to approach harm created in the school environment using restorative justice and not punitive measures. And we would like to, in doing that, create methods for teacher and staff accountability so that when punitive punishment is implemented, we can look at why that has occurred and how we can shift that to make the school climate and discipline as a whole more restorative. We'd also like to review the MCPS Code of Conduct and consider restorative justice in doing that, and codify when and how to use restorative justice with due school flexibility, of course. Something also really important is the community and student involvement in the practice and planning and also performing of restorative justice. And we would like to explore the role of students in disciplinary action, possibly through a pilot or honor board council situation that hasn't been fleshed out. But the sentiment is that we would like students to have an active role and an equal share in the practice of restorative justice. In other words, students should have a right to restorative justice in schools. And then obviously we would like student representation and community oversight. And the second recommendation, which I think is also mirrored in the Mlu Non-Negotiables, is the elimination of police presence from school campuses, which would mean no consistent law enforcement presence on school campus, meaning police cannot be stationed inside, outside, or immediately around schools, as it would hinder our ability to move away from punitive punishment and subject students of color to the school to prison pipeline, which is something we saw occur under the SRO program. The 3 Mlu non-negotiables that this group was also able to recommend was the first one, which I'm not going to repeat, but which was basically the elimination of police presence on school campuses. The second one was the creation of emergency response teams, which would be the mobile crisis response teams that I talked about earlier, which would only involve cases involving violent crime as defined by the Maryland Safe to Learn Act, but otherwise we would like to see culturally competent and trauma-informed social workers who would support students during police involvement if that were ever to occur. In the rare circumstance in which students were to encounter police in relation to an MCPS referral or event, after all restorative justice practices have been unsuccessful, we would like to see a clear plan given to the students of whom they will be interacting, and the possible consequences and steps that would be followed regarding the incident with the aid of a clinical social worker. And so in all processes, we would like to see student well-being and safety-centered performance. And so giving some sentiment behind that group, we want to urge that MCPS ensures transparent, accessible plans for administration and when to involve different justice practices, especially for students, because I know that a lot of students are not really aware of the practices that MCPS uses in its discipline. We would also like to see a provided clear plan of when students will be interacting with MCPS security, police, and guidelines for that. Something that we weren't able to do because we didn't have enough time, what we'd like to see happen, possibly by our own design, but possibly by MCPS design with, of course, input from students. We would like to see the codification of restorative justice in the code of conduct, and make sure that's publicized for school communities so people know that they have a right to restorative justice in their schools. We would like to see students in the future involved in school discipline and restorative justice practices, and that when students are being discussed, we invite students from diverse working groups and organizations to participate in those discussions. Something that I wanted to clarify, and I know that a lot of the students in SWAG wanted me to reassert, is that we do not want police or law enforcement involved in restorative justice or school discipline practices moving forward. All these practices should center students of color, especially Black and brown students, who remain those most impacted by school discipline. And then we want to make sure that restorative justice does not replace punitive punishment as a means of controlling students, as we've seen it misused in the past. I want to just add before I conclude this presentation that I know that there's a growing concern in the community about incidents of violence in the school community, and I know that students have also expressed the same concerns. And I think from SWAG and the students of SWAG, the sentiment that we're putting out is that we think that the supports that we've recommended in these recommendations are really the best ways to address that those violent incidents. I think we see incidents like this happen when student needs are being unaddressed. And supporting students through specifically mental health, but also providing them safe spaces and preventing them from incurring harsh punitive discipline and creating a school environment that's welcoming for all students, we will really see students be supported and a decrease in these violent incidents. And so I just want to represent the sentiment of the students of SWAG in saying that these recommendations, we believe, although sometimes non-specific, are very holistic and represent a sentiment that I think would really drive important change in our county. And so those are the recommendations of SWAG. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today, and I yield my time to the chair.
Well, thank you very much, Kyson. Wow. Wow, that is so impressive. Again, you know, Councilmember Juando and I were just texting each other back and forth, as well as some of my other colleagues, and just so proud of the great work that our students have done. It's just amazing. So again, and I thank you. Again, balancing your workload as a senior with doing this and devoting your heartfelt efforts into this just means a lot, and it speaks to who you are as an individual. So again, just want to give you kudos for what you and the group have certainly done. Anyone else from SWAG, Ms. Rubin, or any of the other co-chairs who wanted to talk about some of the recommendations from SWAG?
So good morning, everyone. Chair Rice, everyone on the call this morning. I just wanted to, again, as Kyson mentioned, I had to ultimately yield my time, but I believe that we are very much interested in having a continuing relationship with SWAG based on the recommendations. Some of what you'll hear this morning, you'll see some of where we've already started to address some of the recommendations in Montgomery County Public Schools, and then we hope to build in that continued relationship to do the others as best as we can. But just want to commend the students for their involvement, their passion around the subject, and their commitment to it. So I think what you see is a clear representation of their thinking, their hard work, and certainly our interest in MCPS to ensure that it can come to fruition.
Excellent, excellent. So let me turn, so colleagues, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually ask, before we delve into questions, I'd like to have RSSW do their presentation as well. And then we can, because there's a lot of overlap between the two, that I'd like to have them so that we can respond to all of that. So let me turn it over to RSSW to give their presentation, and then we'll launch into questions and have a conversation with MCPS about their response as well.
Good morning, Chair Rice and council members. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and to share this morning. I also do want to just echo Ms. Rubin's comments about the work of Kyson and the other members of the Student Wellbeing Action Group. We're just so grateful for all the time that students and other members of that team have devoted. And from a broader scale, the way that so many different stakeholders have come together, as we work together to make decisions around what's best for students and how we can best support students in all of our schools. And so it was great to hear the update on the recommendations today. And so for the next phase, what we are going to do is just very briefly share the interim recommendations around mental health and restorative justice from our SSSW work group, and then spend a few minutes sharing some MCPS updates in terms of work that has started or is ongoing, and then next steps in the work in those two areas. Before we jump in, though, I would also like to give an opportunity to Dr. Kroll, who is here as well, because there's been tremendous collaboration with the HHS in this process, with RSSW, and in so many other areas. So an opportunity for Dr. Kroll would like to share.
There we go. All right, good morning. Took me a second to do this. And I apologize. I know I'm not scheduled to be on the agenda for today, so I will not take up a lot of the council's time, but I'm glad to have an opportunity. Thank you, Mr. D'Andrea. I joined specifically because the recent events have made it clear that the work of these two groups is more important than it has ever been. And I'm thinking about recent events, the sporting events, the events this past week at Blair. Our hearts and minds are very much focused on the safety of our students and the well-being of our students. And this is a moment for us for these groups to continue to push that work forward, to try to figure out how we make our schools as safe as possible and how we engage the students. And Mr. Taylor, I have to say that I was thoroughly impressed with the work of SWAG and your presentation of that work this morning. It is. I was smiling and thinking, yes, we can do that. We should do that. We should do that throughout your presentation. And I think that between these two groups, we will figure out how to make the mental health of our students and their safety a priority in this county. So thank you for the work, and I will yield back to Mr. D'Andrea, and thank you, Jimmy, for the time. And I apologize, I'm going to have to drop off. I have a call at another call in a few minutes with the state. So but I did want to take a minute to be with you all to hear some of this morning.
All right, well, thank you very much, Dr. Kroll. So with that being said, we will now jump in to give an overview of the recommendations in two of the three subcommittees. As a reminder, RSSSW has three subcommittees that are continuing to work. One focused on mental health, one focused on restorative justice, one focused specifically on the MOU between the school system, the police departments throughout Montgomery County, and the state's attorney's office. And that third subcommittee and the details around that will be discussed more at the upcoming Joint Education and Culture and Public Safety Committee meeting. So I will now turn the presentation over to Joanne Barnes and Monica Martin, and I will put the slides up on the screen.
Good morning. This is Joanne Barnes from Health and Human Services. I'm going to let Monica be the first speaker. I just wanted to preface as being one of the co-chairs of the RSSSW group that we are keenly aware of much of the overlap between the SWAG group and our group. And as our director said, it was enlightening to just listen to the summary of their recommendations and see where we do have some overlap. We did meet with the SWAG group over the summer, and we are committed to continue to work with them as we continue to flesh out the rest of our recommendations. So I just wanted to acknowledge them for the work that they're doing and acknowledge both groups for coming together to address the overlap between the two groups. So having said that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Monica Martin.
Hi, I believe Monica's having some technical difficulties at this moment. We're trying to get her back into the meeting, but at this moment she's not available.
If you'd like, I could go ahead and do the next slide. We could come back to her.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
So I wanted to just report on the current recommendations from the Restorative Justice Subcommittee. We, like some of the other groups, had a little bit of a struggle over the summer with attendance, but I think we had a very robust discussion, which included both MCPS and HHS staff to look at some of the areas where we wanted to see improvement. And we had the ability to preview a 101 Restorative Justice 101 training that MCPS is planning to use for, or is already using for their team. But our recommendations were 4 major ones. The first one is that we recommend a rewrite of the MCPS Student Code of Conduct to elevate the full concept of restorative practices to each level within that code. Our second recommendation is that we would hire at each school a fully committed restorative justice lead teacher. Currently, the restorative justice leads were part-time positions, and our recommendation is that we see someone fully committed to that work at each school. The third recommendation is a restorative justice team at every school. That team would be led by the restorative justice lead teacher. It would include MCPS staff receiving after-school stipends to help them commit to the development and implementation of monitoring and accountability to actualize a restorative school. We learned in our research that it takes 3 to 5 years for a school community to fully implement a restorative justice model. So we know that our work is not short-term, that the work is going to go on for several years. And the sooner we can get that model in place and we can monitor it and make sure that we're moving appropriately along the timeline to full implementation, that was an important recommendation for us. And lastly, we recommend cluster trainings with the Office of Teaching, Learning, and Schools. I would add to that in schools that have DHHS presence or recreation presence through programs like linkages, the cluster program, child mental health, and positive youth development. We want to make sure that those partners that are in MCPS buildings are also fully abreast of the restorative practice models. And I think that's really summarizes our recommendations. We know that we have work that continues, and I know that MCPS will be summarizing some of those next steps. So I'll yield now back to Ms. Martin if she is available.
Yes, I believe Ms. Monica Martin has joined by phone. So
I have.
Can we go back to her slide?
Hi, can everybody hear me?
yes, thank you.
Okay. Sorry about those difficulties. I was with you there the whole way up until right now. I'm sorry I'm not on video with you. If the mental health recommendation slide is up, I will talk us through these recommendations. I want to start off by acknowledging the subcommittee co-chairs for this work. In my unit, Kirsten Anderson, the administrator for Linkages to Learning, and in Dr. Santiago's unit, Regina Morales, the Deputy Chief of Behavioral Health and Crisis Services. I am here as their messenger and have been involved in the RSSW and supporting Joanne as the DHHS co-chair for the steering committee. I also want to acknowledge the SWAG members and especially the students that did join this subcommittee for one very important meeting that was one of our most productive ones, and talking about the crossover between the SWAG mental health recommendations and the RSSW ones as well. And then also want to acknowledge Ms. Rodriguez Hernandez, who participated in a number of these meetings. Thank you, not just as a listener, but a participant, and who I think was the first to so eloquently coin RSSW rather than how the rest of us were trying to pronounce the acronym. So in this subcommittee, you know, we really ended up focusing quite a bit on prevention. Per the SWAG recommendations, there's some crossover there around wanting to be proactive rather than reactive. And that's not to take away from the fact that in this and in many other forums, we are discussing the critical need for additional therapeutic and treatment supports. But there were 3 focus areas that the larger committee voted on and prioritized for the subcommittee to address. And one of them really ended up more in the RJ wheelhouse, and you already heard about that in terms of shifting the culture in schools. And so the 2 goal areas here that this committee ended up focusing on was creating and enhancing systems of support to respond to student mental health crises in school. And the first 2 recommendations are connected here, and that is to increase training for all MCPS staff and other community partners in the building on verbal de-escalation skills by investing more in staff becoming certified Crisis Prevention Institute trainers. We looked at how that training is provided to both Montgomery County Crisis Team staff and school system staff, and we heard from a former principal in this committee that there are very few folks that are trained kind of at the expert level across our system. So the specific recommendation there is to invest in a train-the-trainer model so that we can have more of that expertise here in our Montgomery County system and reduce the cost of bringing outside training in, but ultimately to increase the number of staff in each school building that are trained in all levels of de-escalation in order to reduce the number and frequency of severe crisis incidents in the school. Another recommendation was to create a comprehensive and integrated crisis intervention decision tree and intervention guidelines that would define types of crises, including mental health crises such as suicidal ideation, but also, you know, aggression and physical threats, and increase the connection of potential underlying mental health issues in what might be coined as acting out behavior. Not all of us like that terminology. But to make those more conscious connections, and again, across the partnership between MCPS and community providers in a school building. So part of that will take, and that's part of the work that we're looking at now in terms of looking at policies and procedures, defining the roles of those intervening in crises. So again, for both school personnel and external support systems like the Crisis Center and the Mobile Crisis Response Team and high school wellness centers and linkages, folks, all of that. Another recommendation is clearly to support the SWAG recommendations on peer support, and that's not to say that supporting all the SWAG recommendations is not part of this committee's overall outlook. It certainly is, but we wanted to highlight that one specifically because we think that's critically important, and we know there's some important work here happening through the Adolescent Peer Support League in Maryland, and there are models to look at nationally to bring that to light. And then to support the school well-being team's effectiveness in addressing and preventing crises by designating leaders who have knowledge of available resources, de-escalation and intervention strategies, and sufficient time to dedicate to those responsibilities. Kind of parallel here again to the SWAG mental health team recommendation for each school, and in hearing again from former principals that, you know, all professionals in the school well-being teams that were pulled together have full jobs outside of that team. And so to vote some specific coordination and leadership time to those teams at each school level is really a smart investment for all of our students in the building. The other focus area was to assess if sufficient mental health professionals are available to students for proactive engagement. So this we've heard a lot about. And obviously, we want to increase school counselors' availability to support social-emotional needs. One sub-recommendation here is to complete a job class study assessing the current job responsibilities of school counselors. While there's certainly clear value to having school counselors devote the necessary time to academic counseling and social emotional counseling kind of in an integrated fashion for students. There was also a conversation happening in this committee about, what could happen if those were split out in order to devote more time to the social emotional pieces in terms of, again, just general availability and looking at the ratio of counselor to students in the school building. And then also to explore or increase the use of mental health navigators or behavioral health resource specialists, as we call them in our cluster projects, to link students with available mental health providers and maximize the use of existing resources. So we know the resources are not enough, and we're all working on that together as a system. But in the meantime, are we connecting all the dots in the most efficient and effective way possible and as soon as possible, and looking at opportunities to bring more of those supports into the school building, not just through HHS and contracted providers, but through the private sector as well. And the timelines for these recommendations, these preliminary recommendations, are outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. I think we'll turn it over back to MCPS.
All right, so this time we're going to give some updates on the work that has been happening and next steps that's aligned with some of the pieces that you've heard this morning.
Good morning. Can you all hear me? Okay. Good morning. So I'm Nikki Hazel, Associate Superintendent of Curriculum and Instructional Programs. I first want to say to Kaisen, thank you. You did an outstanding job outlining the work that you all have been doing, and certainly want to support SWAG from the Curriculum Office. So certainly want to be in touch with you to see how we can continue the work that you all outlined. I do want to say, however, that a lot of this work has been going on, not just with the Study Sync curriculum, which was mentioned throughout the report, but also in other content areas, and specifically social studies is an area that I did want to outline as well. So I wanted to just share that the social studies department has really done a lot of work with developing courses that reflect anti-racist content. They have done a significant amount of work with their teachers and teacher leaders around professional learning, around anti-racist instruction, and just creating a classroom culture that is inclusive of all of their students. And I'm really proud of the partnership that they have made with different scholars and some of our cultural museums to really enhance their own understanding of content and then enhance the way we deliver content to our students. I also want to elevate that, particularly during the height of the pandemic, we had a lot of issues taking place around our country and the world, but particularly related to race. And they really worked very hard to create on-demand lessons that were related to the current events and really helped provide teachers with those talking points that could get students to really express their feelings about what was happening in our country. And that focus on well-being was really critical to the work that was happening with the social studies department. As we turn to our English work, the Study Sync curriculum is our newest curriculum for literacy. And we did select this curriculum in part because of the diversity of text, recognizing that it was not perfect and that we still had work to do. And so your recommendation certainly asked that we continue to include more diverse texts, that they are inclusive of all students and groups, and that we include more authors and texts. and that we identify the racial bias within StudySync. And so our English, team has really been working very hard. We meet with our StudySync vendors every single week, and we identify those texts that we feel need to be addressed, either through removing them, providing more context for our teachers as they are instructing the students. Really excited that we have added 31 new texts to our library, and of that 31, 29 of them have been written by authors of color and also include more LGBT community within that text. We are also, again, working to provide more professional development for our teachers around the work that they are doing as they're teaching our students. We really want to make sure that our students see themselves in the text and that they have that space for their reading and writing to really be able to kind of articulate their feelings in that space. So we'll continue with this work, and certainly we want to be able to share. I saw in the recommendations to share the list with the SWAG group, so we'll certainly do that for your feedback. And we want to continue with the recommendations that you all have put forth. As the anti-racist audit continues in MCPS, we will continue to examine the work that we are doing to make sure that we are up to speed and up to date on those recommendations. So I'll turn it back over to you, Jimmy.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hazel. And again, this is just an overview of some selected areas of the work that's going on with curriculum, as there is, a tremendous amount has been occurring and will continue to be occurring. Now we're going to hear some updates on the work that's been happening with restorative justice in our schools. So I will turn that over to Ms. Shauna K. Joyanby.
Good morning, everyone. I am Shauna K. Joyanby. I'm the Director of Student Engagement, Behavioral Health, and Academics. It's so wonderful to be here with you today, and some of our friends from our other committees that we work with. I am new to the unit. I am a part of the Restorative Justice unit, but also supervise our community schools and our Alternative 2 programs. I'm really proud to report that some of the recommendations for SWAG we've seen fully realized, and I want to share some of those updates with you today. So restorative justice coaches have been identified and trained in all secondary schools. So in our middle schools and our high schools, we have coaches that are already a part of the staff. As you all know, and has been articulated at the start of this meeting, that staffing continues to be an area that most schools, many schools are working on. So it's lovely to be able to have coaches that are already a part of the culture of the school. Those coaches are compensated with a stipend that is significant. So that stipend is 240 hours. It's about $6,000 for the work that the coaches will do. The coaches serve on school leadership teams. This enables them to attend leadership meetings after school, as well as the monthly restorative justice professional learning community, where coaches can get together, they can learn together, share ideas, plan together, talk about what's working and what's not, and really develop expertise within their groups. We've had over 11,000 teachers, security officers, and staff who have completed the fundamentals of restorative justice training this summer. So that was one of the major asks, that all teachers be trained in restorative practices. And we're proud to say that we have started that work and they have received the foundational course. School teams completed training together and planning together as a designated team, some groups as large as 25 over the course of the summer. Our selected elementary schools, about 24 formerly PBIS schools, were allocated a restorative justice team leader or a mindfulness team leader. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then we also have about 50% of our schools who have hosted a parent session or student session as they continue to engage their communities specifically in restorative justice. We've also increased our partnerships with our appeals and transfer units and working on finalizing a framework that will allow for greater multi-office consideration when making recommendations for 10-day or greater suspensions. We've advocated for policy changes within the MCPS policy and subsequently the code of conduct. As was shared earlier, the MOU with our new community engagement officers, formerly CEOs, have aligned with some of the non-negotiables, including officers not being stationed directly inside of schools. Something that I'm really proud of, the mobilization of the Restorative Justice Unit. So we have a small but mighty group who have responded directly for in-time support directly to schools. So not just professional development and not just consultation, but in the event of something happening at a school to lend that lens to the process. We've increased our collaboration efforts across offices with this model, focusing on behavior interventions and also behavior management processes. We've begun the implementation of programs such as SUPRE that addresses our first-time students who are first-time drug users in lieu of suspension, so that we can make sure that we address the root cause of behavior. And I'm really proud of that program as well because it involves families, right? So it is a training course for families as well as the student that they could participate in together in lieu of an exclusionary practice. We are also aligning our work and meeting with and hearing from the Restorative Justice Group under the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So lots underway. There are some areas that we need to consider further as we build out, right? So it was shared earlier that this is a multi-year process and change takes time, and deep and true implementation takes time, it takes money, it takes learning, it takes efforts, and it takes all of us. One of the things that I will share honestly is that our elementary schools, so our middle schools have begun the deep work and they are supported with the hours and the pay to be able to do that, to engage after school and during summers. Our elementary schools are not supported at the same level. While they are supported centrally, and some do have a team leader or mindfulness lead, it's a $300 stipend, so it's not quite the same. And so they're not able to engage in those after hours PLCs at the same level. Many do and choose to, but on a voluntary basis. So that's something that we are looking to improve. Continuity with the unit. So our unit is, again, small but mighty. We have 6 specialists. One of those specialists is a clinical social worker that we can send directly to schools to support. It's a small team. We serve 209 schools, and we are getting more requests daily. And we are happy to do it. Great to be out there in the field. But we have a grant that's ending soon, and to continue staffing this unit, to continue to work is a consideration or a challenge. We'd like to see more direct support and implementation of the restorative justice mindset and philosophy and supports, including a PLC for the virtual academy, right? So ensuring that the VA also receives an RJ coach that can participate in the PLCs as well, and that we can provide some more direct support. Right now, they're doing a wonderful job of reaching out for training materials and learnings, but there's more that we can do there as that's in development. And then continuation of our efforts. We learn, and a lot of the research tells us that RJ programs that fail tend to fail because it's not continued or it's housed in one space. And once that's gone, it's gone. So we would like to build this into something deeper, something foundational. And so that means onboarding new staff and giving existing staff refresher training in restorative justice approaches and practices. So looking out for being able to fund that through summer 2022. And finally, the formal creation of a central student review honor board as recommended by SWAG, that is bullet point E, that is one that we haven't fully fleshed out yet. There are some considerations, including privacy concerns with student information, particularly when we're talking about discipline, but I'm sure there are things that we can do to work around that. So fleshing out what that looks like with the help and support of SWAG.
Right, so with that being shared, we will now yield back to the chair, but we appreciate the opportunity to share some updates this morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. DeAndrea, and thank you very much to all of the presenters today. You've given us a lot. And I think that as I turn over to my colleagues, I'm not going to ask my questions. I want to allow for my colleagues to ask questions and make comments. I'm just going to make one at the outset. We have some great recommendations, and the worst thing that we could do is take these recommendations and just put them on a shelf somewhere. We need to make sure that they're implemented. And, you know, there's been mention, Kyson has talked about funding and making sure that the county council funds some of these initiatives. Kyson, I will tell you that we have fully funded the MCPS budget every single year for a number of years and intend to do the same thing this year. And so the key is in making sure that Montgomery County Public Schools puts the request in. We've actually also added in additional supports when asked by MCPS. And so the commitment is there. I promise you that from this county council to make sure that the resources are there for you and your fellow students to enact some of these changes that we know are going to be beneficial to all students and to our greater community as a whole, right? And so I just want to state for myself, and I know my colleagues will state the same, but I know I've heard them, the members of the Education and Culture Committee, both Councilmember Navarro and Councilmember Juwando, have worked hand in hand with me over the years in continuing to support our school system and the great work that they've done and the initiatives that they've put forth. And so this will not be any different. So this will not be a challenge in terms of us making sure that we continue to support these great works. I just want to make sure that we make that progress. And so one of the things that I would ask as I turn this over to Councilmember Juwando and then Councilmember Navarro and then Co-Chair and Vice President Albornoz is that I would like to see kind of a timeline of some of the short, intermediate, and long-term goals in terms of what we're able to implement immediately, what some of the things are that are going to be a little bit longer, and of course those that may take a number of years. Understanding that there are some things that we can't do right away. I completely understand that. But there are some things that we can do immediately. Those should be implemented as part of the Board of Education's request to the county executive, which then comes over to the county council. Those things should be done right away. And then as we continue to move forward, what I'd like, Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez, is for us to be able to go back and do a check in terms of what progress we've been able to make in terms of these recommendations. So kind of like a checklist of the ones that we've identified in short term, and then identify which ones we've been able to do, which ones we may have had some challenges with. And I do want to acknowledge, look, when it comes to our professionals, and I don't want to steal Council Vice President Albernoz's thunder, but I know that we are going to have challenges when it comes to attracting some of those mental health professionals. Everyone is scrambling for them all across this nation. I chair the National Association of Counties Education and Human Services Committee, and I can tell you that there we talk about this issue on a nationwide basis all of the time. But there are some creative things we can do. We just saw what Howard County did when it came to their bus drivers and incentivizing by offering signing bonuses. I know those are things that Dr. Kroll and HHS are looking at as well. Dr. Santiago is on the line. I encourage us to keep looking at those innovative approaches. We are unique from some of the other counties across this nation in that we are situated in a way in which financially we're better off than some. And that is a reality. And so we need to make sure that whatever advantages we have, we utilize them to the fullest. And so if it means making sure that we have incentives and signing bonuses or things that allow for us to get our cohort of mental health and support professionals ramped up quicker, I think that's something we need to talk about. We need to put before the county executive and the council. So with that, I really, again, appreciate all of these recommendations. I think they're fantastic. Again, some of them will be implemented quicker than others. And some of them we may have to have some discussions about in terms of how we're going to implement some of them. But I think overall, this really is a great place for us in really making a difference when it comes to the lives of our students and our greater community. And with that, Councilmember Juwando.
Thank you, Chairman Rice. And whoa, what a lot. There's a lot here, and it's all great, and it's all really important. So I'm going to try to move quickly so we can get to my colleagues and have a discussion. Again, Kyson, very proud of you and your colleagues. I just want to say that again and again. And I hope you're getting credit for not missing school. This is one of the most important learning things you probably could do. So I just wanted to do my best, and then if someone maybe miss, is it Jordan by? Did I say that right for me? I'm sorry. Duranby, I'm sorry, Duranby, Miss Duranby. You can clean up what I mess up. But I think it's important for the millions watching at home to define restorative justice. We've said it 100 times. And it turns into something like equity and things. People don't understand what it means. But in my layman's terms, this is a system of justice in discipline, or as opposed to discipline, that focuses on mediation and agreement, right? Repairing the harm, having whoever is involved understand what was done, take ownership for it, and repair that harm, and then reintegrate the person who created the harm, if need be, back into the situation successfully. And it's not a punitive model. It's also not a model where there's no responsibility taken. I think oftentimes when we talk about restorative justice, people think, oh, well, nothing's going to happen and I want punishment. And unfortunately, in society as a whole, we have a dominant punishment model, but this is different. And so it's important because you get to learn how you harm somebody, what you did or didn't do. The other person gets to talk about it, and you get to the root causes of issues, right? And so is that a fair definition? You can add to
have it, right? It's focusing on the root. So there is accountability, but focusing on the root cause of the behavior, focusing on the relationship. So kids have a way back. Too often when we exclude kids, what happens is that maybe the person that excluded that we feel better temporarily, but that child comes back and the root is never addressed, and that behavior can happen again and again. It's about building community and accountability. And so I think you have it. And I do agree with you that it's misconstrued often that parents believe or people might believe that it's without accountability or without consequence, but it's really aligning those things together and making sure that we repair the harm.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I just wanted to start there because I think, it's easy to not understand that. And I've, in my professional life, but also personally, I've gone through restorative justice circle. I've mentioned this before with my children at schools. I've seen it happen. It works. It's important. And to have a system-wide model as we're building towards, you raised some very significant issues that we need to address to make sure that we don't stop the work that we've done and that we continue to accelerate it. But it has been shown in other places that have been doing it for a long time, like Oakland, who's been doing it almost 20 years now, or, in other places to reduce disparate discipline, to reduce violence. And I think we just have to remember that, especially this week with the horrible incidents that have happened in our schools. We have to commit to this work in a deep way. And it's part of keeping our kids safe. And I just wanted to really say that from the outset. I'm glad there's so much alignment with the recommendations, particularly on the restorative justice. Now that we've explained it, the full-time coordinator, could you just tell me what would be needed to do that? Because it sounded like you said they're part-time now, so this would just be converting these folks to full-time, and that would be their sole responsibility. Could you just explain that and what the cost and timeline for that would be?
So right now, our restorative justice coaches that are at each school site, so they're not centralized, they're individuals at the schools, they are stipended. So they receive about $6,000 for their times and efforts outside of their teaching responsibilities. I think one of the recommendations from the RSSW committee was a full-time restorative justice teacher at each school. So without the commitment to the courses that they need to teach,
Yeah, so they're
Things
not
of that
also
nature.
teaching other things. They would just be focused on restorative justice.
So they would be fully salaried, focused on restorative justice. So right now what we have are teachers who are teachers, right? And they have restorative justice responsibilities in addition to their teaching responsibilities, but are compensated for it on the secondary level.
Right.
At the elementary school level, the compensation is not the same.
So an interim step to get there. So that would mean 209 schools, everyone would have one of these folks. So it could be 209 people, some of which who could be converted from their current role potentially, but then you have to backfill the teaching responsibilities for those.
You've got it. You've got it. And so right now in our current circumstance, the model works well because we are using existing staff to fulfill that. If this is something that we built out for the future, yes, we would be adding essentially 209 teachers to the teaching staff.
Okay. And I just think it's important because we want to have, like Councilmember Rice said, we need to have a timeline and a step. And so step one would seem to be, or one of the first steps, really compensate the elementary in a similar way as we move our way to, more independence, right? Because you say it works well. I'm sure it works well in the sense that these are dedicated folks. But to Councilmember Navarro's point, that's hard. That's a lot to do for one person teaching and focusing on that in the building, I would imagine. Okay, so we need to get on a pathway to that. The mental health, just on the 750,000 that we put forward in that, which helped accelerate the work in the middle schools. I'm assuming that's part of what was embedded in your presentation here. And correct me if I'm wrong, but what would we need to do to accelerate it even further? You mentioned 1,000 school staff have been trained so far. What do we need to do to take it to that kind of next level to get everybody included?
Okay, so that 11,000 of our teaching staff is representative of well over 90% of our teaching staff, right? So the training that's happened has happened at the teacher level and at the admin level. The numbers are not quite the same for our support staff. So our paraeducators, our secretaries, our building services staff, because when we talk about restorative justice, we talk about a community. It is not just the teachers that serve in front of our students. It's the bus drivers. It is our cafeteria workers. And so building that out more in the realm of our support staff would be an important next step.
Absolutely.
And not taking it further than the initial training. So making sure that there are refresher trainings each year for existing staff and a more extensive training for our new teachers as they're onboarded onto NCPF.
That's right. And agreed. I don't know if I didn't see here, but if you have numbers or can get us numbers on that, because I think that's absolutely critical. I just take for paraeducators and bus drivers, the people you mentioned who have not had the level, they're often on the front lines of when disagreement arises. And are getting it even before teachers in some cases. So I think having those folks equipped is very important as well, as you just stated. Okay, a couple more things. I love the honor board student idea. Don't let the privacy stuff get in the way. I think one of the best things, and as you know, is a part of restorative justice, is getting the students to buy in to what we're trying to do, like whether it's a contract at the beginning of the day, like many of our kids fill out a behavior contract, or getting them to buy in and to be a part of the mediation and repair in a formal way, I think, as you know, has been proven. So we should definitely push forward with that. And that would seem to be something we could do sooner rather than later. It's not as much of a cost thing. It's just trying to figure out the mechanics of it. And then the last thing I wanted to ask, the mental health navigators on the mental health piece, and maybe this is HHS. I love that concept, and I just wanted to know how much of that. Obviously, we need to get our numbers down, our ratios, and you all mentioned that, and we want to do that as far as counselors. I think it's absolutely essential we separate the academic counseling from the mental health counseling, or provide more staff and resources for that, because I hear that all the time, as you all do, particularly at the high school level, that they're doing 90% academic, and so a lot of kids don't even go to them for mental health because it's just not even seen as that's a part of the role. So I appreciated that recommendation. But on the navigation side, what are we doing there, and what could we do to help, again, find out what level of therapist, counselor, psychologist, because kids need different things, and we might be able to handle things at lower levels. I'm assuming these navigators would help with that. And could you just explain that concept a little more? And are we doing that already? And what would be involved in that? And that'll be my last question.
Perhaps I'll have Monica respond to that. I'll just say that there is an infrastructure already, a growing infrastructure that Monica mentioned in her presentation on mental health work, like in wellness center, student well-being teams. And she can explain a little bit more the navigator models, which is something that we're exploring across DHHS as well, placing them in hubs and other programs as well. Monica, do you want to elaborate a little bit more?
Sure. And I mean, first I want to start off by saying that clearly a lot of MCPS student support personnel are also navigators, right? They're constantly trying to link students to resources. But the conversation around this in regards to the mental health navigation specifically, as opposed to navigating to any other resources, did stem from a role that we right now have in our cluster projects, in the Watkins Mill Cluster Project, the Paint Branch Springbrook Cluster Project, and the Kennedy Cluster Project, which is a behavioral health resource specialist, which basically is that, it's a mental health navigator, but it's somebody with a mental health background who serves as a concierge of sorts and who is the expert not just in the resources and what's out there, but the insurances they take, the languages, the transportation issues, and really just has their finger on the pulse of the changing landscape around, what youth may be best served by what provider or service. And I'll tell you, it's a full time. We have 1.5 of these people for these 3 cluster projects, and they are busy. They're busy doing this, and then are able to kind of, keep me informed and keep our leadership informed around what's accessible, what isn't at any point in time. The other key part of that role is also working with parents on a little bit of psychoeducation around when parents may not be in the same place with regards to, what's happening at school versus what's the mental health need. And so doing a little bit of that supportive counseling and psychoeducation to help further connect the dots. So just an additional dose of that. MCPS does that as they're talking with families and students, but an additional dose of that. And so that's not the only way to do it, certainly. There are other models out there, but we know that we get lots of referrals from our MCPS partners for that service specifically. And so clearly there is need across the system, not just in the participating schools for these 3 clusters.
I appreciate that. It seems like an important triage responsibility among other things. Okay, well, I'll pause there, and we could all talk forever about this. I think hopefully, Mr. Rodriguez, I was somewhat clear about some of the priorities there that we can hopefully loop back to as other colleagues bring things up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for your work.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Joando. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I apologize, my camera is off. I have some issues with that, but I wanted to take the opportunity to thank everybody, in particular, Kyson. I think that this is a clear example of why it's so important to include the student voices. I mean, they are the ones who are on the ground. They are the ones who are experiencing all these issues firsthand, and they can best inform us of what are the steps that need to be taken. There is a lot here, and as I reflected and tried to digest all the different recommendations, I am reminded of all the years that we have spent working on this particular approach. I'm glad Ms. Martin spoke about the Kennedy Cluster Project. It is amazing. I just found that memo from 2007 when I proposed this project, and it was to be an absolute holistic approach. I regret the fact that this project was not implemented at Fidelity, because I think we might be in a different place right now have we actually implemented this at Fidelity and not just sort of piecemealed it a little bit. But I am glad that we have that template, because I think that it can really serve us. It has been implemented very well, but not with the resources necessary. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we do this in the county a lot. We have a lot of really extraordinary people come together to put forth proposals, but then somehow they don't, we don't tend to scale up those particular initiatives or programs or proposals that have yield results. And then we find ourselves in moments of crises trying to figure out and throwing everything together. So I would like to suggest that perhaps we also take a look at the Kennedy Cluster project template, see where many of these recommendations might fit, augment that particular process project. And then I guess from MCPS's side, one of the questions I have is that we look at the demographics of our school system. We layer on top of that the extraordinary crises that our students are right now going through. And we layer on top of that the issues of the shortages of staff. And there's also, I might add, been quite a number of MCPS central office staff that have also left, which is another issue. And so I guess I'm trying to understand from MCPS's perspective, HHS perspective with positive youth development, what kind of culture change does this actually mean? It seems to me like this needs to be a much more comprehensive shift. And, as Councilmember Rice said, we fully fund the school system's budget. We've done that. I know the school system also received ARPA funding. And so has there been a conversation about how this is like a defining moment and therefore the culture of the organization writ large may have to be revisited to incorporate many of these recommendations as not just like things to do right now to address the crisis, but just how we now do business, given the fact that MCPS is now, 73% students of color, majority of which are Latino. And what does that mean for a system of this size? So I guess, again, I appreciate the recommendations. Many of them, I'm trying to figure out how would they be implemented, given that we have been trying for a long time to do this and we haven't been able to. We don't have enough culturally and linguistically proficient mental health professionals. We've had like 3 sessions on this. So I'm just trying to be realistic, I guess, in terms of what are the commitments on the table of a broad culture change on MCPS's side and also on HHS side to make this a reality so we can appropriately serve our students, which is what I've heard Kyson articulate. And ladies and gentlemen, this is not going to get any easier. We already seen that it's not going to get any easier. So anybody want to respond to that? Because I'm concerned that a lot of the things that have been put forward are amazing. I just don't know if there is a roadmap that is urgent enough to respond to what we are facing right now. Anybody want to respond?
I would love to take a shot at it, Councilmember Navarro. I think from the MCPS side, the sea change that you are describing is MCPS specific because we're here and then really national and global due to the onset and the continuing health crisis. I think I'll point out 2 things that are significant. I think our ongoing collaboration with SWAG, and Kyson can certainly speak to this. I think there were taking away the hierarchy in that group. So when we came to the table, I wasn't necessarily the associate superintendent and Kyson was the student. That was student led. We listened, we learned, we shared. I think that's the start of a cultural shift where we do have students at the table in an equal sense, giving voice to their perspectives and how they see it. And then we're making those things actionable, which I think you can see in many ways we have. For the cultural standpoint that you're speaking to, I'll give an example of our newcomer position in MCPS as a part of our collaboration with HHS. We kept re-advertising and kept that position open until we had candidates who were either bilingual or multilingual. And HHS can tell you their struggles because we collaborated, we were communicating throughout the entire thing. Where are you? Do you have someone? And if we didn't feel like we had someone who met the criteria in the past, and there's an urgency to this, so I don't want to understate the urgency. But in the past, we would say, look, we really need the person. Let's take the best candidate that we have. Instead, what we said is, okay, what can we put in place to make sure that the work keeps going? And then how do we re-advertise? And then where are we looking? We're excited about some candidates that we have for that. I think our social worker that you heard Ms. Duranby mention is multilingual, clinical social worker. We had to do a lot to get her. We did. We had to do a lot to get her. We had to think outside of the box. We had to think broadly. And having her has been such a tremendous force. So we actually have a consultation meeting between HHS and MCPS about staffing for the 50 or so social workers. And I know that in Kaisen's, and I want to respect that, in Kaisen's proposal, SWAC's proposal, we're hearing they want the clinical social worker. We also know that we have behavioral health therapists, other counselors that we may need to look at because of the shortages that are out there. But our collaboration and commitment to finding individuals who meet the current state of where we are, how we look culturally, what those cultural proficiency needs are, the relevancy of that is extremely important. So I think we shifted our work in a tremendous way to be able to move in the right direction. But the sense of urgency and the call to action that you're speaking of is one that we all have to acknowledge and then build in the processes to do that. And I actually feel like we're on a good road with that. There's discomfort in it because we normally say we need to get it done. This has been a real wake-up call for us in MCPS, and I think you'll see some of the positions we bring forth, some of our programming. You will see the changes as we're able to develop those.
I really appreciate that. Before I forget what I was going to say, thank you so much, Mr. Rubin. I also want to share that the council has incorporated into our state's priority letter a request for also our state partners to address the barriers for licensure and things like that, because we are so worried about this particular issue, while we also might have some opportunities for folks that might just need some help, just a little push, who are already qualified. We have a lot of immigrant folks who come here with great credentials but are not able to get everything transferred over. So we're all working on different levels to get this going, and I appreciate you recognizing and mentioning how this is going to be really important. It has to be a partnership with our HHS department because we're seeing it on both sides. We're seeing it on the MCPS side, our school system, but also in general for our population, the shortages that exist that are quite important. I also wanted to mention, before I forget, that there have been so many studies in other school systems around the country that perhaps have very little resources, not like ours. I feel like, half of our budget goes to the school system. We know this is a commitment we all have made ever since I'm in public service, but there are some jurisdictions that have very, limited resources. And one of the things they've done is to just train everybody in that school that interacts with students to be a support, to provide that kind of connection that we know students express, is lacking many times. And so I hope that we're looking at all of the above to mobilize and to prepare and to establish those relationships that all of our students are just seeking. The reason why for me this feels like even more urgent is because we know that the pandemic has accelerated and exacerbated these needs. So that's why I think that we literally have to just be all hands on deck to respond as soon as possible. Mr. DeAndre, I think I cut you off. Sorry.
No, I apologize, Councilmember Navarro. I just wanted to add into what Ms. Rubin had shared, that Dr. McKnight consistently shares with staff in various settings throughout MCPS. This is really a unique opportunity for us to reinvent the way that we do business. And you alluded to some of the federal relief funds as well as the funding that will be coming presumably with the Maryland Blueprint. that we really have opportunities to think very differently about things than the way we did prior to the pandemic. And so Ms. Rubin gave some really good examples of the work that's happening within the Office of Teaching, Learning in Schools, but across the system as a whole, we are very focused on thinking about, with the influx of the various funding sources, how can we use those funding sources to best meet student needs in different ways than we had previously considered prior to the pandemic. And so you bring up a really good point about the work that we're doing, and I think you will see in Dr. McKnight's operating budget request, which will be coming before we know it. I think you will see evidence of a lot of that work that's happening to really think differently about the work that we do on a daily basis. And as a result of the pandemic, there's really been, as you alluded to, a significant increase in the level of collaboration between MCPS and a number of our county partners. And that's something that's really critical that we want to build on and capitalize on as we move forward, because we know that that will result in the best outcomes for students.
Thank you, Mr. DeAndrea. I look forward to seeing that and seeing how that ARPA funding has been then strategically invested to respond to these, growing needs. The only last question I had asked, I guess from HHS, I was just curious as to what is the role of the Positive Youth Development Initiative and the folks there who obviously are on the ground and deal with the students and the young people who are, in dire need of support, of help, and of engagement. Have they been front and center in these discussions and these recommendations?
I can respond here briefly, and Joanne, you can also mention your thoughts. Right now, I think there is a culture change in some situations. I may have mentioned to you before, and some of you may be aware that there was an incident this summer at the Plumgar Community Center. Well, to make a long story short, the response has been tremendous. Speaking about culture change and the kinds of things that we're talking about this morning, I've witnessed personally in meeting after meeting, weekly meetings, sometimes twice, collaborations between the staff at MCPS and also in the Department of Health and Human Services, where we're working with specific individuals and families. It's a very complex situation. We're de-escalating not just individuals, but an entire community. That's culture change in terms of collaboration. I hope that what happens is that we can learn from this little case study that is happening, integrated into the discussions we're having today with a more formal procedures and policies, and bring the two together, because I think that culture change is possible. Joanne,
I would just to respond to what Dr. Santiago just said very quickly. I so much appreciate you sharing that. I think that, as I mentioned earlier, the Kennedy Cluster Project established that protocol of collaboration and developed MOUs and all of that, because we understand that this requires a kind of interagency, interdepartmental collaboration also with our community members. And I do agree with you. I think that this is the only way that we're going to get to address all these very complex issues facing our youth. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, Luis Cardona is central to these conversations that we're having there as well.
Yeah, he has been, and I sometimes wonder, like, how much is Luis Cardona going to be able to do? He needs a lot of help, and that is the model that, thank God that we have that there in the community, because it has averted and it has addressed so many issues that some of us may not even have heard about. So kudos to the work of the Street Outreach Network for sure.
Yeah.
Ms. Joanne, sorry.
I would just add, as I look at some of the meetings that we're in with MCPS, very often you see some of the same partners around the table. And there's a good thing for that. I mean, it means that the same people that are working on cross-programming between MCPS and HHS are also involved in reimagining student well-being in cool down meetings that we've had as a result of what happened in Plumgar, and in our positive youth development work that we're doing. We just, about 2 weeks ago, pulled together the Positive Youth Development Initiative Steering Committee to plan for that next meeting, because we don't want to duplicate what's going on in SWAG and reimagining committees, but we want to make sure that the folks who are involved in the positive youth development work are included in the plan. We want to make sure that while we're pulling together timelines for long-range changes in how we work with children, that we're also looking at opportunities that are happening now to work with children on how to do different types of conflict resolution and who to look to for guidance when they're struggling with conflict in the middle of some of the recreational activities that are going on. So we are trying to pull together our Positive Youth Development Steering Committee to bring MCPS in as a part of that. We had invited MCPS Rochelle, but I admit she got the invitation at the last minute. But the plan is to take that small planning meeting into bringing that work group back together so we can address some of the things we can do immediately with young people in their activities to make sure that we're addressing this from both sides. We can't do it all from within the school. We've also got to do some of it from the relationships with the HHS and recreation partners as well. So I think there is a method to this madness. And in fact, having the same people in many of these meetings will help us continue to build on what we're doing in cluster, in positive youth, in linkages, as well as the recommendations that are coming out of these committees.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with you. I actually had hoped that the positive youth development folks had been involved from the very beginning, because again, it's not as if this is a new issue, and we understand that it takes all of these different components. I mean, we are investing in all these programs. It is not a school specific in the school building issue. It's something that we have to look at from, a holistic and comprehensive fashion. So you're right. It includes what's happening, after school, what's happening in the community. This has to be, as the cliche says, it takes a village type thing. And again, the good news is that we have invested in building the capacity of all these different programs, all these different efforts, all these different initiatives. And we are not going to get the results that we need unless we have everybody on the table and we identify the gaps that exist. We fund those gaps. We look at to see if we need to realign or reinvest, and we scale up the initiatives that actually work. I think that's what our young people are looking for us to do. And again, I feel really hopeful because we're not starting from scratch. We've done this. We have it there. We have extraordinary experts already, as you just said, Ms. Barnes, working on this. So if we could just get everybody, at the table and do almost like a crosswalk type of exercise, and then let's get going, because I just, I feel like we've lost a year, almost 2 years of normalcy, right? Like this just been really tough, and so now we got to catch up. We got to catch up quickly, and we can do it here. I know we can. So again, thank you so much, and Tyson in particular, thank you so much for describing in such a targeted fashion everything that you have led and the voices of our students, which at the end of the day is why we're here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Navarro, my co-chair and Council Vice President Albornoz.
Thank you, Chairman Rice. There is so much to unpack here, and so I'm going to try to synthesize my comments in a way that will hopefully somewhat make sense and lead to probably some questions. But I'm just trying to process all of this, just like all of us are, because it's a complex issue with a lot of layers and a lot on the line. And it is not new, as we've heard. And I appreciate going after Councilmember Navarro, because in her comments, it triggered a few things for me. The first was, going back to the Kennedy cluster, we did a very comprehensive asset map for the programs and services being provided within MCPS, county government, nonprofit organizations, faith-based organizations, within one cluster. It was an extremely informative exercise. And through that process, also organically helped to establish relationships among people who were serving these kids and families, but may not have even known that the other person was doing that level of work. And I think we need to go back to the future here and acknowledge that this can't be a one-size-fits-all. Every school, every community has a unique set of needs and issues that are specific to that school and to that community. While there's a crossover among a lot of those issues, there also are, especially unique needs. So I love the concept of a crosswalk, but I think, and I totally agree with it, but I think it would be worth us revisiting what assets are already there, so that when we implement the 50 social workers, which will take time not just to onboard them because we're facing a crisis right now and hiring behavioral health specialists in all categories, but even once they're on board, they need to get the lay of the land of the assets that are available within the school. They need to establish relationships with the teachers, the administrators, the students, and also be aware of what is available within their communities where they can make referrals. Because let's be candid, Blair High School has over 3,000 students. One clinical licensed social worker is going to be so important, but expecting them to be able to provide clinical behavioral health care and assess and address crisis intervention, which happens unfortunately on a weekly basis and at all hours, evenings and weekends too. We have to be able to put that person in the best possible position to succeed, or we're not going to be able to leverage as we should the services that we already have available. And we're fortunate in the county that we do have a very strong infrastructure in place of program services, nonprofit organizations that are all key to helping solve the unique sets of challenges of these students. I do like very much within the recommendations this concept of a team approach, which again is not new. As part of the Kennedy cluster, what we did was it evolved, and Councilmember Navarro is absolutely right. It should have been resourced from the beginning, but it was implemented during the recession. And so we ended up having to utilize existing resources. But what it turned into, and this was very powerful, is several times a month, a team of professionals that included people with a housing background, with a legal background, in some cases when necessary, an immigration legal background. And it also included people from the recreation department that could talk about extracurricular activities that were available. And those meetings were with families, not just the students themselves, but their parents. And it was this very complete and very specific wraparound approach to addressing families that were in crisis and that needed services in real time that would be implemented right away. And the people that were at that table were empowered by the directors at the time to allow them to make decisions in real time on those referrals and onboard them onto programs and services as quickly as possible. And there was a very deliberate approach in identifying the families who were in that crisis who needed help. So I think that, as Councilmember Navarro again said, and others as well, we do need to transition into implementation as soon as possible. The other, and I'm going to jump around, I apologize, again, trying to synthesize this in a way that makes sense. But to something I said in my initial comments, the work that Kaisen and his colleagues and peers did was really remarkable. And I'm sure that was also probably enlightening them to them. There are a number of other student groups that are out there. There's the Youth Advisory Committee that advises the county executive. There are ethnic and culturally based youth advisory groups in different settings that are immensely helpful in building bridges. I'd like for us to consider doing an asset map on those organizations that are already in existence of youth voices that we may be able to pull together. Because I want to moving forward, institutionalize youth voices in this discussion and conversation, which sometimes happens organically, which is good. But I think we need to have something that's a little bit more formal than that, so that when all of us, none of the people on this Zoom call are going to be around forever. And so as transitions happen between administrations, as we leave to go on to other jobs, we need to have that youth voice be consistent all the way through, but also as diverse as possible, because there are very unique sets of needs among all our population of youth in every way imaginable. And so that's something that I think is, and we have our youth town hall, which is, honestly, it's like my favorite night of the year on the council. And I think there's an opportunity for us to infuse that, particularly within our committee work. So that's another component that I think we're going to need to focus on. And the last two, for now, I mean, there's so much more that I want to sort of think through as well, are the relationship building. So, you know, most of the folks that are actually on the ground doing this work are not on this call. And, you know, the relationship and synergy between those individuals is so important to this work. And we also have to acknowledge, I'm just going to be candid, every school has its own culture. And some of that is based on the people who are administratively in charge for carrying out those schools. And it is what it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It is what it is. And there are some schools that I have observed and that I've experienced over many years of doing this work that view support structure as an asset. And there are others that sometimes view it as a liability, that, you know, just one other thing that they've got to deal with or address on top of the myriad of other issues that they have to address during the day. And when it's done well, and we leverage the resources of our county agencies and HHS and recreation and our nonprofits, it is very powerful when you know, communities come together to support the holistic needs of these kids. That's another thing that we're going to need to institutionalize in this work moving forward, or we're going to just have this constant cycle of feeling like Groundhog Day and having these conversations over and over again, just with different players that are out there and different stakeholders that are out there. So I think that's another important component of this work. And you know, I, for one, and I know Councilmember Jawando and I are hoping to be back through more than just this term, but carry the mantle forward that Council Members Rice and Navarro and Councilmember Glass is on this call as well. I know I've had many conversations with both of them. We are super committed to ensuring the continuity of this work because it is going to take time for us to be able to implement many of the recommendations through no fault of anyone's, just the practical reality of the situation we find ourselves in right now. But we do need to take that long view. So that was a lot. But I just wanted to brain dump a little bit there and get on the record on addressing some of these issues moving forward. But thank you all so much, and I'm sure there will be more sessions as we discuss implementation, and this council, as it always does, stands ready to support these efforts, whether it be through policy, whether it be through funding, whether it be through connecting dots and organizations. That's the coolest part of the job that I've loved so far, is connecting organizations. Because of the perch that we sit in, we have this broad view of the entire county that's pretty powerful. So thank you very much. This has been informative and helpful, and another important step moving forward. Councilmember Rice, back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. And I did, you had mentioned Councilmember Glass, and unfortunately he had to step off. He had another meeting at 11:30, but he did ask me to express his appreciation to Kyson for your great work and for all of the great work of SWAG, and also his agreement with Joanne Barnes about not duplicating this important work. We've got to break down the silos and over-communicate and collaborate. So I did certainly want to make sure that Councilmember Glass had that represented. Let me just say that one of the key components of our RSSW work, our police, were unfortunately not able to join us today. I know that Assistant Chief Willie Parker Lone, who was scheduled to be with us, is attending a police funeral today. And so we certainly express our condolences to the MCPD family. And so therefore, that's the reason why they couldn't be here today. So certainly just wanted to recognize that that's the reason why they're not on this call. So there are a couple things from what I've heard so far, and I really want to thank all of my colleagues for all of their great questions and comments about this. And I'm going to try and sum it up this way. It seems as though there's a lot of momentum and a lot of folks who are in agreement. And oftentimes that's when it's the hardest for actually to get things done. When everybody agrees and everybody says, yes, this is the way moving forward, there's nobody who's mad. There's nobody who's upset and says, oh, I don't agree with this or that. And it tends to be that in those types of situations, there's a stagnation of action because everybody's in agreement. Yeah, we need to do this. This sounds great. And then it tends to fall by the wayside. As you heard from Councilmember Navarro, as you heard from Councilmember and Vice President Albornoz, who's been a part of county government for a long time, we oftentimes do that. And it's just something that happens with government. I'm just not sure why it is, and I can't always put my finger on it. But it's one of those things that we see often. And so I want this to be different. When we talk about the cultural change, it is not just about saying that we're going to do things differently, but it is about saying that we have to have a fire in our belly. We have to have this uncomfortableness that's there. And I hope that people see it in what's happening in our schools right now. I was at Montgomery Blair High School, my alma mater, on the day of the stabbing. I saw children's faces. I saw the fear in their eyes. I saw the fear in the eyes of parents who were coming in to get their children. I saw police and support personnel and administrators and folks all working together to try and come up with a situation that would ensure that we could keep our kids safe. And those are the worst case scenarios. Those are the ones, as we have framed in even the discussion with SWAG, that these are the instances in which police unfortunately will have to be involved when you have something that's as serious as bodily harm, which ended up being now the student charged with attempted murder. But the reality is that we need to focus on the prevention. We can respond to these types of incidents, and that's important. But if we focus on the prevention side and ensuring that we put the resources that are there to stave off these things from happening, that's where the real work is. That's where the real opportunity for us is. We can arrest people all the time, and we can put people in jail and hold them accountable. But that's not going to take the trauma away from that young man who was stabbed. It's not going to take away the trauma from those individuals who witnessed the incident. It's not going to take away the trauma from those who were in the school, who heard about it, who were fearful about maybe something was going to happen to them. None of that's going to fix that. And so we have to make sure that we do our part when it comes to avoiding these types of instances. Really working with our positive youth development. I understand that programmatic resources were being looked at for some of the individuals. These are all kinds of things that we just need to make sure that we can do everything in our power to ensure that our students are supported and giving everything they need to be successful. And when they are identified as having some challenges, just as you heard from Councilmember Joando and laying out what that restorative justice practice is, and thank you, Ms. Durandi, for going over that as well. These are the kinds of things that, again, people need to hear to understand that this isn't about just, tapping somebody on the back of their hand and saying, no, you did bad and go on. This is about real work, about substantive work that can help to stave off things like this from happening, from developing into these type of egregious incidents. That's what needs to happen. And so I look forward to working with all of you and holding all of us accountable. There was a comment that was made about what happened at Blair, and a person had said, well, you made the decision about school resource officers, which quite honestly, no one has made a decision about school resource officers. We have a recommendation that's there, and we have a policy that's enacted by the chief of police and the county executive. But I'm not hiding from the fact that we all bear responsibility. So when a person says we all have blood on our hands, the reality is we all do. Every single time we have an incident that happens in our school system, all of us bear that responsibility. We all have roles to play, including the greater community, when it comes to ensuring that we're keeping our kids safe and that they have the best learning environments possible so that they can be successful, that we can support them to make sure that the social and emotional learning will allow them to prosper in the years and future to come. That's our responsibility, all of us, collectively. And we've got to start holding ourselves accountable and making sure that these failures that are there are owned by all of us and fixed by all of us. That's what these recommendations, I think, are about. They're about holding us all accountable and making sure that each and every one of us understands just how important it is for us to get this right. We can do it if we're intentional. We can do it if we're committed. We can do it if we're honest and truthful about what our challenges are and where we need to go. And we can do it if we care. And I think we have a unique opportunity that's upon us, where we've come out of a crisis pandemic and really shown that Montgomery County can shine. If we can get that right, we can get this right as well. And so I look forward to working with each and every one of you, continuing to see the great work of SWAG and RSSW. We look forward to seeing the continued involvement of our students in decision-making and being at the table when it comes to MCPS. We look to the collaboration between MCPS and our Department of Health and Human Services and our nonprofits and our positive youth development and our Montgomery County Police to the extent in which they can help us on that journey of ensuring that we keep our kids safe and we have positive outcomes in their futures. So I want to thank everyone. Councilmember Joanne, please.
Yes, great. I don't want to take, that was awesome. I agree with everything you just said. I just want to make a fine point on the student participation. I've heard kind of both sides. SWAG should continue. It could certainly grow and students will change. Obviously, Kyson's going to graduate. But I just want to, from MCPS, obviously, I hope that there is a real commitment to keeping the group ongoing. And I want to just be clear about that. I think, Ms. Rubens, you made a really strong point that the centered nature of the student voice, and it was, a lot of other groups, including Kyson, of other student groups participating, that's just, it's so critical to this work. So I just want to, Mr. DeAndrea, Superintendent, I just want to make sure everyone's clear. I think I speak for all my colleagues in saying that, this should continue. So I just want to be clear about that.
Absolutely. And I think that there's a commitment there to make sure that that happens. And there's a commitment there to enact true change. We've talked with Interim Superintendent McKnight about this. And thank you, Mr. DeAndrea, for bringing up the Interim Superintendent's thoughts when it comes to that cultural shift and change. We've seen it with a number of other things that MCPS is doing differently. And we appreciate that because everything has to change. Our government has changed significantly over the years, and MCPS, being a large entity, needs to do the same. We all need to evolve and change. The world is very different from what it was, 50 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. And I think that, again, the more we can do to be receptive and open to that change is important. It's hard, as I've heard Councilmember Juando say over and over again when he talks about and describes change. It is a very difficult thing. It's incredibly uncomfortable and really not a place where people seek to go, but it has incredible rewards. And that's what we're all trying to do at the end of the day. I don't think that there's anybody on this call, anybody who's a part of these groups, who doesn't believe in what we're trying to get to. And so as I started at the beginning of my comments about us all agreeing to what that finish line is, let's get there, and let's get there faster than anyone ever thought we could. That's the urgency. So together, we're going to make this happen. So I look forward to following up. Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez, again, thank you for taking the great notes of all that my colleagues have put forth in terms of what our expectations are. We will be doing a follow-up checkup once we have compiled a list of the recommendations and want to check status from each of the individual stakeholders who are responsible, whether it's our police department, whether it's our HHS, whether it's MCPS, whether it's our nonprofit community. We want to make sure that we have delineations for all of these and understand what the puts and takes are, and also the responsibilities. And then we expect to see, as a part of budget requests, because we do have budget requests that are coming from both the school system and the county executive with regards to health and human services, that all of these will be reflected as a part of those budget asks as well. So anything else from my colleagues? If not, I want to thank them again. This has been awesome. For our IT staff, we're about 45 minutes early. So yay, education and culture and health and human services. We get everything covered and we get it covered on time. So I want to say thank you again to everyone. Take care, be safe, and make sure that you're getting your vaccinations and your boosters as much as possible. Take care, guys. We're adjourned.